Matthew chapter 21, verse 28 through 32. We've heard that statement from Jesus several times, and we apply it in different ways. But God and these two men, these two sons, is talking to you and me. You ain't set up with that. It says here in the verses, it says, but what do you think? A certain man had two sons. Who's the man representing here? A certain man had two sons, and he has to go work in his field. The man is representing God. Two sons, one said that he would go, didn't. One said that he wouldn't go, but did. Which one really pleased God? But both of them had thoughts, didn't they? That's humanity. There's not a human being alive that doesn't have thoughts. We each have thoughts. Some like me more than others. But we have thoughts. But he says, and he answered and said, I will not go. The first son said, I will not go, but afterward went. And he came to the second, and the second likewise, he answered and said, I will go, sir, and went not. Whether the twain did the will of his father. And they said to him, the first. Jesus said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that the publicans and the harlots shall enter the kingdom of God before you. For John came unto you into the way of righteousness, and ye believed him not. But the publicans and the harlots believed him, and ye, when ye had seen it, repented not afterward, and ye might believe it. In other words, actually, Jesus asked questions to the publicans, Sadducees, and the Pharisees. He asked questions not to accuse them, but to let them realize their own thoughts, didn't he? When he asked that question, the man that had the two sons, he asked to go work, and one said he would go, or wouldn't go, and did, and the other said he would and didn't. What was Jesus really getting at here? What was he really talking about? Was the Sadducees and the Pharisees doing what God had told them to do through His Scriptures? Were they living up to their? They said that they would take the message into all the world. They said that they would teach the gospel. But what they were teaching and what they were doing, was it really teaching the gospel? They were saying they would go, but they didn't go. Then here the Gentiles, when Jesus came, John the Baptist had people that were following him. The study we're doing here in prayer meeting now on Tuesday evenings, it was some really. The statement was made, the question was asked, how many disciples? Was it just the 12 disciples Jesus had? Well, the answer is no, there was many, many more. How many disciples did John have? John had a lot of disciples, but they started, when they saw Jesus, they saw what John was pointing to, and they started following him. There were people following Jesus that were not of good sorts, according to the church. According to the church of that day, they were not the best people, but they were following Jesus. And that's what Jesus was pointing out to the church. Being in a church doesn't mean that you're doing what Jesus asked you to do. Because you're in a church doesn't mean that you're doing what God has commanded you to do. Being in the church doesn't mean salvation. Only a relationship with Jesus guarantees that. There's a writer, David McCarty, had a program with people that was looking for jobs. It was a marketing program. And he was saying that every week he sent words of wisdom to people. And then he sent just a little blurb. And you've heard this story before. I've heard this when I was small. It's still going around today. Now listen carefully. This was a story about 4 people. Named everybody, somebody, anybody, and nobody. There was an important job to be done, and everybody was sure that somebody would do it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did it. Somebody got angry about that because it was everybody's job. Everybody thought anybody could do it, but nobody realized everybody wouldn't do it. And it ended up that everybody blamed somebody when nobody did what anybody could have done. How many people does these 2 men, these 2 sons, who do they represent? Jesus asked his 2 sons, the man asked his 2 sons to go into the world, into his harvest, into his vineyard and work. The man asked his sons to go to work. God asked you and me to go and work. These 2 represents everybody in here. These 2 sons represent each and every one of us. Which one are we? Are we the ones that said, no, I won't go, but finally you went? Or are you the one that said, I'll go, I'm in church every week, I'll do the job, I'll do the work that God has given me to do, but really didn't do the work. Really didn't go out and do the job that God has commanded us to do. Which category are you in? Which category are we in? What are we doing for God in His field to work? What are we doing that God has asked us to go work for Him? Are we saying, I will go, but in reality we're doing things contrary to what God has asked us to do? Are we doing our own thing? Are we doing our will? Are we making our life the way we want our life to be? I was talking to a fellow the other day. We were talking about stuff, things we have. You know, we get so much stuff, we build sheds or garages and we fill that full of stuff. Our house and closets full of stuff. Our attic, if we have one, is full of stuff. Then if we get so much stuff, then we have to go out and rent storage bins to store their stuff. And some of it, they don't know what they even have. It's all about stuff. It's all about stuff. I was talking to one fellow, he said that he used to be that way. He said, stuff is what matters. He said, I had a business, it said trucks, equipment. And when I retired, I didn't want to get rid of it. It was set out there, it's paid for, it wasn't costing me anything. It was stuff, it was my stuff, I wouldn't sell it. It was stuff. Somebody could have been using it, but it was stuff. And he said, you know, the last few years I realized stuff doesn't really matter. He said, I've gotten rid of all that. Got rid of a lot of stuff that was in my garage and in my house. He said, you know, I'm a lot happier with God than I am with stuff. Stuff is going to be destroyed someday. Stuff is not going to get us to heaven. Stuff is not going to please us when times get hard, when times get rough, and they're coming, folks. We're getting close to the end. But if you want to create a relationship with Christ, you don't want to be like everybody. You don't want to be like somebody. You don't want to be like anybody. You want to take and be true to what God has asked you to be. You want to be who God has created you to be. And do what God has asked you to do. He's given us each a responsibility. He's given us each a job. And we see the things, and we've talked about things here today that this church has done and is doing, and it's reaching the community. And it's doing good. And not only blessing the community, it's blessing the church, isn't it? And Danny made the statement, I think this is important for us. Danny made the statement that they were talking about in Patty, that how they didn't know how that they were doing all that they were doing, except God was shoveling it in quicker than they could shovel it out. Folks, that ought to be a motivator for us. It's not just in the food ministry that He'll do that. He'll do that in the gospel ministry too. Because after all, the gospel ministry is what this is all about. Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 1 talks about, and in chapter 2 about that He is here, and we worry about how we're going to share the gospel with people. And you talk about what happened at the cross. You know, the center of the gospel is the cross, isn't it? And what happened at the cross. The center of the gospel is what happened at the cross. Jesus died for our sins, paying for our sin debt, giving us eternal life. That's the center of the gospel. But Paul talks about that in 1 Corinthians, I'm not going to turn there because you don't have the time to, but he talks about excellency of speech and wisdom and knowledge of man. We can be bashful, and we can be self-conscious of being in front of people. You know, there was a few years ago that if you'd have told me that I'd be doing what I'm doing today, I'd have called you a liar. I'd had a few coarse words for you because this was not something that I wanted to do. This was not something that I chose. I didn't want to speak in front of people. And I'd speak, I like people. I love people. But not so many at one time. I like to one-on-one or two or three, you know. I've done good that way. But you put me in front of a crowd and it just didn't work. In front of a group, it didn't work. Because I'm not excellent in speech. I'm not wise. I'm not somebody that would be desired to be in front of a crowd and be in front of the people to listen to. But you know, for some reason, somehow God uses even somebody like me. And believe me, if He can use somebody like me, He can use anybody. And He will use everybody if we'll make that choice. If we'll make the choice to go do the work that He's asked us to do. But you know, in that question, when Jesus asked them, He asked these Sadducees and the Pharisees, the church leaders, the church, He asked. You remember when David had made a mistake, the king had made a mistake, and Nathan come before him and give him a parable of taking the lamb of this one man had his own. It was one little ewe lamb, all he had. He loved it. The lamb loved him. And this great man came and he took this ewe lamb from this man and slaughtered it and gave it to his guests. And And when he had many sheep of his own, he could have took. And the king stood up and said, "I'll kill him. You don't deserve to live." And the prophet said, "You're that man." That's what Jesus was doing here to these people. He's asking us today too. Because in verse 41 of chapter 21 of Matthew, if you will, if you have your Bibles, turn to verse 41. Matthew chapter 21, verse 41. And I want to show you something. While you're turning there, I want to share this with you. In chapter 7, verse 21, the Bible says, "Not every one that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of the Father which is in heaven." That's the one that's going to make it. Now again, are we the ones that said, "I will go," and didn't? Or are we the ones that said, "I won't go, but we go"? It's a question we have to answer. But verse 41, chapter 22, verse 41, is everyone there? After this long episode here with Jesus talking to these men, and they accused him of being with drunkards and harlots. They were the ones that was listening to Jesus and then laying down their old lives and following him. And here the church was claiming to be following him, claiming to be following the Bible that they had at that time, refused to do so. In verse 41 it says, they said unto him, "We will destroy those wicked men who will let out his vineyard into another husband, and they shall render him the fruits of their season." See, Jesus asked them questions. He was talking about the vineyard owner leaving people in charge, men in charge of his vineyard. But then when they come time for the harvest, they come to collect, and they wouldn't let the owner's representatives in to collect the due from the harvest. And finally he sends his own son, and they kill him. And they will get ready to kill Jesus. How different are we today? See, everything in this world belongs to God, doesn't it? All things belong to God. Sit down, Daddy. All things belong to God. It's all His. But we want to collect stuff. The Bible tells us we lay up our reward where at? In heaven. So, what Jesus is telling these church people is that this is mine. This belongs to God. Do you want to serve the Creator or the created? Do we want to work in His vineyard, or do we want to claim the vineyard as our own? That's a question for us today. The job was really for everybody. And anybody can do it through the Holy Spirit, through Christ in us. And Christ strengthens us. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. We can do all things. Everyone has that opportunity. Nobody is willing to take responsibility except somebody who will do the work. You know, there's a statistic, and it's not only in church, it goes through your, I'd say Dirk would agree with this, and I'd say Teresa, and I'd say Jerry would agree with this before Jerry retired. Any job, a church organization, any time that there's a group together that's supposed to be doing a job that they're committed to, you can figure about 20% of the people doing 90% of the labor. No different with the church. How about if 100% of God's people participated in the gospel commissions? Anthony mentioned a while ago in the children's story that the kids each had asked someone to come to church with them. If each of us shared the gospel with somebody, more than one, and only one accepted what we shared with them, how great would that be? Because you know there's people that each one of you can reach that nobody else can reach. That's why God gave you the gifts that He gave you. Each one of you has gifts that nobody else has. Each one of you has a character that nobody else has. Each one of you have ideals that nobody else has. God gave you that. He gave you that for a reason. If you use it according to His will, He'll grow the kingdom. He'll grow the church. And He'll grow you. We don't want to be like the men in verse 41 here. And the one in chapter 7 of Matthew, saying to Him, Lord, Lord, and He not done many works in your name. And He said, depart from me, I never knew you. We want to be the one that says, well done, thou good and faithful servant, right? Is that your desire today?
Yes.
Let's study God's Word. Let's pray harder, pray more. Say, Lord, what is it that you want me to do? What would you have me to do? And open your heart and your mind to letting Him lead you to what He wants you to do. Because He has a purpose for every one of us. And if we use that according to His will, our lives will be much more peaceful, much more satisfied in His will than our own. Father, this morning we come to you and ask, Lord, that you bless